John Astrup from New Zealand is P15 on standards. 30 minutes remaining in the session race start. San Marco is P2. John Astrup is P13. Kieran Chen entering the pits is P18. San Marco is P2. Eric Bohm from Germany is P8. Rene Robertson is P2. Ryan Skywalker is P5. San Marco is P3. Richard Ogden is P14. San Marco is P3. Eric Bohm is P5. San Marco is P3. David Forsyth is P8, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P3 on standards, battling Rene Robertson. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Glenn Field is P10 battling John Astrup. David Forsyth is P6, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Kelsall is P13 battling Bruce Hardwick. San Marco is P3 battling Eric Bohm. Louis van Jaarsveld is P14, 0.2 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P6, 0.3 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Hein van Niekerk is P17 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind Richard Ogden. David Kelsall entering the pits after 3 laps is P14. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.4 seconds behind San Marco. Rene Robertson is P6, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:55.029. 6.938 of the fastest lap. Hein van Niekerk is P15, 0.2 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Eric Bohm is P3 battling San Marco. Kian Chen is P18. Best lap is a 1:52.659. 4.568 of the fastest lap. 25 minutes remaining in the session. San Marcom is P3, 0.2 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Hein van Niekerk is P14, 0.4 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm is P3 battling San Marco. David Forsyth on lap 3 is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. John Astrup from New Zealand is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Emmanuel Rocheuser. Bruce Hardwick is P14 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Hein van Niekerk. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. John Astrup is P10, 0.5 seconds behind Emmanuel Rocheuser. Kian Chen entering the pits after 4 laps on standards is P18. David Forsyth is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Emmanuel Rocheuser is P10 on standards, 0.1 seconds behind John Astrup. David Forsyth is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:51.072. 3.179 of the fastest lap. Richard Ogden is P15, 0.4 seconds behind Bruce Hardwick. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Richard Ogden is P16, 0.2 seconds behind David Kelsall. Glenfield entering the pits after 5 laps on standards is P8. Eric Bohm is P3, 0.3 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7 on standards, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Eric Bohm from Germany is P3, 0.1 seconds behind San Marco. David Forsyth is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marco is P3 battling Eric Bohm. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.1 seconds behind David Forsyth. San Marco is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Rene Robertson is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Ustjosen. San Marcom from Zimbabwe is P3, 0.4 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Jovan Ustjosen is P5, 0.2 seconds behind Rene Robertson. San Marcom is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. San Marcom is P3, 0.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Richard Ogden entering the pits after 6 laps on standards is P15. 20 minutes remaining in the session. David Forsyth is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Ian Morton entering the pits after 2 laps on standards is P19. Eric Bohm is P2, 0.6 seconds ahead of Sam Markham. Brian Patterson is P7, 0.2 seconds behind David Forsyth. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 1.3 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Forsyth on lap 6 is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Hein van Niekerk is P13, 0.1 seconds behind David Kelsall. Eric Bohm entering the pits after 7 laps is P3. David Forsyth is P7, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Best lap is a 1:50.215. 2.614 of the fastest lap. Brian Patterson is P6, 0.8 seconds ahead of David Forsyth. Hein van Niekerk is P13, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Rene Robertson is P3, 2.3 seconds ahead of Jovan Ustjorzen. Ian Morton is P19 on standards. Best lap is a 2:23.747. 36.146 of the fastest lap. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 7 laps on standards is P16. David Forsyth is P7, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. David Kelsall is P12, 0.7 seconds ahead of Hein van Niekerk. John Astrup is P8, 0.5 seconds behind David Forsyth. David Kelsall is P12, 0.7 seconds ahead of Hein van Niekerk. Rene Robertson entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P3. Rene Robertson is P3, 2.3 seconds ahead of Jovan Ustjorzen. Jovan Ustjorzen entering the pits after 8 laps on standards is P4. Jovan Ustjorzen is P5, 2.3 seconds behind Eric Bohm. Glenn Field is P14. Bruce Hardwick is P18. Best lap is a 1:53.733. 6.132 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson is P7, 0.7 seconds behind John Astrup. Best lap is a 1:48.293. 0.692 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5, 0.4 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Rene Robertson is P7, 0.3 seconds behind John Astrup. David Forsyth from Ireland is P5, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Mark Scott from Norway is P8 on standards, 0.3 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. Rene Robertson is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Forsyth. Sam Markham entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P2. David Forsyth is P5 on standards, 0.2 seconds ahead of Rene Robertson. Rene Robertson is P5 battling David Forsyth. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Emmanuel Russia user entering the pits after 9 laps on standards is P9. Mark Scott is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Rene Robertson is P5, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Emmanuel Russia user is P14. Best lap is a 150.968. 3.367 of the fastest lap. Brian Patterson is P5, 0.1 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall is P9, 0.3 seconds behind John Astrup. Brian Patterson is P5 on standards, 0.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. David Kelsall is P9, 0.1 seconds behind John Astrup. Attila Kseniai entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P1. Attila Kseniai is P1. Ian Morton is P19. Brian Patterson entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P5. Ryan Skywalker entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P6. David Kelsall is P8, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. John Astrup entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P9. Ian Morton entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P19. John Astrup is P8. Best lap is a 150.545. 2.944 of the fastest lap. David Forsyth entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P13. Mark Scott from Norway is P6, 0.3 seconds behind David Kelsall. Rene Robertson is P4. David Forsyth is P14, 2.9 seconds behind Richard Ogden. Louis van Jaarsveld entering the pits after 10 laps on standards is P16. Jovan Oosthuizen is P7, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Louis van Jaarsveld is P16 on standards. Mark Scott is P7, 0.4 seconds behind Jovan Oosthuizen. Bruce Hardwick is P18 on standards. Hein van Niekerk is P17. Mark Scott entering the pits after 11 laps on standards is P7. David Kelsall is P5, 2.2 seconds ahead of Jovan Oosthuizen. Bruce Hardwick is P18. John Astrup is P9, 0.5 seconds behind Mark Scott. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 4 laps on standards is P18. Jovan Ustyorzan on lap 11 is P6, 2.4 seconds behind David Kelsall. Bruce Hardwick is P18. 10 minutes remaining in the session. David Kelsall entering the pits after 9 laps is P5. Jovan Ustyorzan is P5. Best lap is a 1:49.117. 1.785 of the fastest lap. John Astrup on lap 11 is P7, 1.5 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Jovan Ustyorzan on lap 12 is P5. Ryan Skywalker is P9, 0.3 seconds behind Mark Scott. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 11 is P15. Bruce Hardwick is P18. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 12 is P15. Emmanuel Richard is P10, 0.1 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Brian Patterson is P11, 0.2 seconds behind Mark Scott. Best lap is a 1:50.328. 2.996 of the fastest lap. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15. John Astrup is P7, 0.7 seconds ahead of Ryan Skywalker. Emmanuel Richard on lap 13 is P9, 1.0 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. John Astrup is P8, 0.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Bruce Hardwick on lap 12 is P17. Brian Patterson is P10 on standards, 0.4 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. Louis van Jaarsveld is P15. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Emmanuel Richard is P9, 0.5 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. David Forsyth is P13. Brian Patterson is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Emmanuel Richard. John Astrup is P8, 2.0 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Emmanuel Richard is P10, 0.1 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5. Emmanuel Richard is P10, 0.3 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5. Gian Chen is P14. Emmanuel Richard is P10, 0.2 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5. Emmanuel Richard is P10 on standards, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5. Emmanuel Richard on lap 15 is P10, 0.5 seconds behind Brian Patterson. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5, 4.8 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Bruce Hardwick on lap 12 is P17. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5, 2.5 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Louis van Jaarsveld on lap 15 is P15. Jovan Oosthuizen is P5, 1.4 seconds behind Rene Robertson. Bruce Hardwick entering the pits after 3 laps on standards is P17. Rene Robertson is P4, 0.1 seconds behind Jovan Oosthuizen. Bruce Hardwick is P17. Rene Robertson is P5 on standards, 2.5 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Richard Ogden is P12, 0.1 seconds behind Mark Scott. Rene Robertson is P5, 3.9 seconds behind Jovan Ustjorzen. Louis van Jaarsveld is P16 on standards. Emmanuel Russia is P10, 0.2 seconds ahead of Brian Patterson. Richard Ogden is P11, 3.2 seconds ahead of Mark Scott. Ryan Skywalker is P7 on standards, 4.1 seconds ahead of John Astrup. John Astrup is P8 on standards, 4.5 seconds behind Ryan Skywalker. Attila Ksenia is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Attila Ksenia finished P1. David Forsyth finished P13. Mark Scott finished P12. Richard Ogden finished P11. Eric Bohm finished P2. Sam Markham finished P3. Kian Chen finished P14. Jovan Ustjorzen finished P4. Hein van Niekerk finished P15. Glenn Field finished P6. Rene Robertson finished P5. Ryan Skywalker finished P7. John Astrup finished P8. Emmanuel Russia finished P10. Brian Patterson finished P9. Louis van Jaarsveld finished P16.